welcome to CEC Gurukul Lectures. Dear friends, this is our session on career counseling called Pratibha Samvardhan, and today we are talking on research writing. We are talking on the importance of research writing, and we believe that you are going to get maximum knowledge as we have with us in our studios Kirti Dikshit. She is pursuing her PhD in psychology, and currently she is working with Jitin Chawla Center for Career, and she is making all her efforts so that she could make and she could give her best so that the student community is benefited. So let's welcome our guest, Ms. Kirti, once again. Hello, ma'am. Welcome to the lecture.
Hello, thank you.
So, as the topic of discussion is research writing, but before moving towards what is research writing and how research writing could be done, my sincere question to you is how research writing could be helpful for one who is seeking a good career. Kindly explain us.
Sure. So I would like to answer this question in three folds, since students would love to bifurcate into their knowledge that is relevant to them. First would be the school students. So first, if you are a student, of course you would be having a lot of high aspirations in terms of reaching to the best universities. Even if this is abroad, or let's say the best and top universities in India, you would want the best for you, and the best universities would of course want the best students for themselves. So while they have a lot of bunch of students who would be applying to their universities, my question to you is, how would you stand out of it? So research writing is one way where you showcase your skill that, hey, I am focused into research writing, or let's say I am focused into reading, learning and experimenting more. Right. Next category would be students who are pursuing their undergraduation. So let's say you're somebody who's doing BSc in psychology, or let's say BA in psychology. Now you would want a good post-graduation university, or let's say you would want to get a job after your undergraduation. Your dissertation, that will be in your third year, would be your best opportunity to showcase your employer, or let's say your next university selector, that hey, I am interested into this field and I am a serious and sincere employee. Next would be the postgraduate students. Of course, anybody who is pursuing postgraduation or who is about to complete their postgraduation would want to explore more career choices in terms of, let's say, what do I do next? How do I proceed with, let's say, if they're interested into research writing very specifically, that would be how do I get into PhD in the best university, maybe in India or again abroad, right? Now, when you do your dissertation very seriously and with full sincerity, right, this will open gates to the best universities for you.
That's wonderful. So now proceeding further and explaining as well as knowing us, it is very important to know why and how research writing could be done. So kindly explain us in detail how one can proceed further and go for the research writing.
For sure. So let's start with what exactly is research writing before we get to the process of research writing, because when you understand the concept, it's much easier for you to implement and understand and work on it with interest, right? So first, research is basically the analysis, the interpretation of what all information have been done so far and what experiment you have been doing. Right. So when you look at research, you can look at research in different areas and different types. So first could be primary research, where let's say you are a researcher and you go to, let's say, 100 sample of people, you collect data from them, you work on the analysis of it, and then you get some results. Now second is the secondary research, where let's say you would want to look at waste management per aaj tak kitna research hua hai. Right, you would compile all the researches that have been done in different journals. You can just go on Google Scholar, right, just write waste management and you'll get hundreds and thousands of data. That there's also this option of filter that you will find on the left side section. You can also filter out the number of years you would want to filter and typically get the data out of it. So yes, digital Google Scholar is one of the major sources of information. Now, let's come back to the process of research writing. When you are starting this process of research paper writing, the first and the foremost step, which is the very important step, is to choose the right topic, because you will spend a good 3 to 6 months on a research paper if you are doing it very dedicatedly. Right? And if you're not interested into the topic and you have selected a topic that is not matching to your aptitude, to your personality, you'll not find joy in it. And if you're not finding joy, I doubt if you'll be able to complete that, right? So how do you find a right topic? Now, let's say I am interested in knowing more about social psychology, right? So what I can do is I can go to ChatGPT. Today we have hundreds of AI tools, right? You can utilize ChatGPT very specifically. If you have a paid version, that would be great. If not, then you can utilize social psychology. What are the hot topics? What are the emerging topics? Today we have a lot of content online as well, right? So you can utilize content on LinkedIn. There's this page of American Psychological Association that you can research and understand what exactly are the things that are trending, what is it that is getting researched about. Alright, so when you look at these topics, you'll be able to at least catch a bracket of, let's say, maybe I'm interested more into AI and I am getting a major in psychology. So you would want to connect, let's say, AI with psychology. Now, how would you do that? A few examples could be you would want to understand how AI is used in consumer behavior, or let's say how AI can be used in understanding maybe your feelings or maybe your friends' feelings when they're talking to you, right? So that could be a few choosing criterias, which is very crucial for you to understand when you start with the topic. Now, the next step after choosing a topic could be starting to write the introduction. Right. Of course, we are also submitting an abstract, which I will be discussing later, since that has a gist of the entire research. So that I'll take up later. Now, let's look at the introduction. Now, what does an introduction look like? It's basically a compilation of what all variables do you have. Right. So let's take an example of AI with consumer behavior. Now, if let's say I want to read a research paper that talks about how AI and consumer behavior is linked, one, I would like to know about what AI is, what all things are used to define AI, and then know more about consumer behavior. What are the metrics that we use to measure consumer behavior? Like, let's say, how can I compel my buyer to buy me? Or maybe how can I improve my advertisements, or things like that. So whatever metrics you want to use, it's better that you start your introduction in a manner that explains both of these variables, especially the metrics that you would want to include on. Right. Now, introduction could be streamlined in, let's say, different paragraphs, or let's say it could include a lot of definitions. Now, an important thing is plagiarism. Right. So, when you are writing, a lot of students have questions like, ma'am, whenever I'm writing a research paper, I'll quote a lot of different things from different authors. Right. So, what you do is, whenever you're referencing to maybe a quote or maybe a definition that was given by somebody in a particular year. So what you do is you double quote that definition, write the author's name and the year in the bracket, and then that will not affect your plagiarism report. That's one, right? Second, a very interesting approach towards introduction is always about creating a storyline. Now, I would not just want to know what AI is and what a consumer behavior is, because I can, of course, go on Google and search what both of that is. But what idea do I have as a researcher in mind that I want to create a storyline so that the reader understands that, hey, now, of course, I would want to know how this is linked. Right? What is my idea of AI? Why do I think that AI could be linked to consumer behavior? So, when you create a storyline with that introduction, it will compel your reader. Now, the first paragraph of your introduction should always have a definition of both the variables that you have. And, of course, that should be one scientific, second genuine, third more focused in terms of what, why and which definition. Because in any field and in every field, you will have 10 different definitions by different authors about every concept, right? So, catch a definition that is more relevant, catch a definition that is more reader friendly. Now, the idea of research paper writing is not to, let's say, showcase my knowledge. I can have, let's say, 10 folds of knowledge, whatever I have. But if I'm writing a research paper, it has to be very, very, very simple in language. If my reader is not able to understand what I'm writing, the process of research writing fails. Right? So, introduction. In fact, the entire research paper writing style should be very simple. Second, it should not include a lot of jargons. Now, what jargons is? Basically concepts that only you would know. So, for example, let's say I am from psychology field, right? I would know X number of terms, terminologies, but somebody who is from a non-psychology background might not be able to recall or maybe understand. If somebody has to Google 10 different words from my 10 different lines, it's very difficult for the reader to keep up with the pace of the paper. And then eventually they might not even go ahead and get that knowledge from the paper, right? So coming back to the introduction aspect, now when this introduction gets completed, the last paragraph should again be a conclusion of making the reader understand that how have I linked both of these variables in this. Now of course you build a storyline. When you start with your paragraph, first paragraph could be a definition of both of these and how do you link that. Next would be a detailed explanation of the first variable, and next would be the second variable, and of course you can add the metrics that you are using, right? And the last paragraph could be a basically conclusion of, let's say, what AI is and how do I link it with consumer behavior per se in this example. Okay, now the next section is review of literature. Now what is review of literature? The secondary research that I mentioned, where you would want to know last 10 years what was the research done on waste management. Basically that is your review of literature. Now regarding this example, if I want to know what all work has been done on AI, what all work has been done on consumer behavior, is something that I would read and tell my reader in this section of review of literature. Now why is this important? So what you did was, you started with the research, basically an experiment. You told the reader that, hey, this is AI, this is consumer behavior, this is why I'm linking it. Now they would also want to know what all work has been done. Why? Because we don't want to keep reading about the same topic again and again. There's no point doing a research that has already been done. So the idea of research writing is to find a research gap. And how do you find this research gap is the review of literature. This is basically the most important aspect of your research paper writing. Of course, the entire paper writing is important, but this is basically the jam of the research paper. Alright. Now, when you're looking at review of literature, you'll have to read, let's say, around good 40-50 research papers on both the variables that you have. Now, for example, if I were to write a paper on AI and consumer behavior, I would read at least 30 to 40 research papers on first AI, second on consumer behavior. And third very interesting approach towards review of literature is that I usually try to read more in terms of, let's say, is there any other research that includes both of these plus a third variable. Now how this becomes important is, let's say I got a paper on AI, consumer behavior, and maybe exercise, right? In the other paper I could link something else, but at the end what will happen is I'll get a good network of a lot of things that I can connect together, because even as a human, we are social beings, right? Everything that we have is linked to one thing or the other. So it's very important for us to have a very diverse view of everything. Okay, and one thing to note about review of literature is, let's say we should probably look at preferring something within 5 years of range. So let's say you're starting your research paper today, so I think it's better that we start with last 5 years ka jitna bhi research that has been done. I think that will give us a good amount of research for both the variables that we are looking at. Now the idea of me saying both the variables is that for simplicity of understanding, of course we could take 10 or more than 20 variables in a research paper, but on an average, if somebody has to start with the research paper writing, the idea is that you take 2 variables and start working on it. I'll be telling you how to experiment, how to take out more data, and how to analyze those data in the methodology and the conclusion section as well. Okay. Now, there's a particular format for writing a review of literature as well. So, when you, let's say, write 30 to 40 research papers on AI, now you can't keep writing the entire paper here, because everybody who is reading your paper would just want a gist of whatever you have read, right? They would not want a katha to be written on every other paper that was done, right? So it's basically one format that is called an APA format. Okay. Now, how do you write that? You basically write the surname, first initials of the name, put a dot, start a bracket, write the year in which the paper was published, close the bracket and include things like what was the title of the paper you read, maybe what was the sample size and what did they get out of it. Again, a review of literature is not just a list of 40 papers that you read, because again, whatever papers you are reading might not be relevant for your reader with respect to the paper that you are writing, right? Now the idea is again a storyline. See, for academic writing or let's say any writing, the art of story writing is very important. You need to build that. You can't just start writing anything. Of course, the draft that you will start with will be complete basic, right? And of course, you'll be doing a lot of edits. But when you're doing those edits, after you're done with the basic draft of it, it's very important for you to just understand कि if I am looking at it from a layman language, will I be able to understand what have I written? If let's say you are writing in the field of psychology, you should look at the perspective of a person who is from a non-psychology background. Will he be able to or will she be able to understand what am I writing here? Is the question you should ask yourself after you are done with the basic edits. Of course, we'll talk about peer review and publishing later and things like that. But a lot of times the challenge for writing a research paper among students that I have interacted with till now is, ma'am, it's very difficult and challenging for me to start a paper because I feel I might not be able to do the best justice to this paper. Now, why you're thinking in a similar manner is because, one, it's better for you to phase it out. So, for example, let's say you want to start your research paper. You will start with a basic introduction. You will start with reading first, right? Now, take it into phases. Let's say I would want to take 3 days to read. Next 3 days to create a basic draft. Next 3 days will be done for editing. Now, while you are in that editing phase, that is the phase where you should focus on story writing. Before that, it's completely your learning. It's the phase that you should enjoy the most, where you're reading 10 research papers. There's also a concept, an idea that you should keep in mind while you're doing or reading a research paper. So, for example, while you were choosing the right topic for yourself, it's important to, just through the research paper, what was the topic? Maybe you can just have a look at the abstract section. And my favorite idea to have a look at the research paper is to go to the limitations section. It's very important for you to go to that section and understand that, hey, this researcher did something that was amazing, but he also might be having some limitations or let's say some future references. So as a writer, it's very important for you to understand that, hey, even if as a researcher I'm doing my best, there will still be scope for something that the other person can do better, or maybe they can do it on a larger scale, or maybe with a different perspective, or maybe with a different population or things like that. So that is also one reference that you can get your ideas from. That could be the limitations section. When do you do that? You do that when you are choosing the right topic. Now, when you are looking at the review of literature, which was the current topic that I was discussing, you skim through the research paper in terms of the introduction, second, the review of literature that they have done. Third, you go to the references section and see what kind of research papers have they referred to. There you will get a whole bhandara of research papers that will be relevant not only for your paper, his paper, but also for your paper. Okay. There's this connected papers. Now, when you go to Google, you write connected papers. There's this amazing tool. You can write your suggested topic, whatever XYZ thing you're working on, and they'll give you a network of a lot of research papers and a lot of variables that you can work along with this. So you can definitely look at this tool while you are working on the review of literature. Alright. Now let's come back to the methodology section where you understand and analyze how do you work on these variables. Now, coming back to the same example of AI and consumer behavior. Let's say I would want to work on consumer behavior only one aspect. How can I sell better? Okay. And AI ke liye, I would just want to know how many people are using ChatGPT. Maybe. Okay. Now, there are different metrics with terms of quantitative research. Now, how will you find that is, there are a lot of standardized tests. Students who are in their undergraduation would relate to this better, because while I was doing my undergrad, I saw a lot of students. What they did was they wanted to write a research paper. They went to the laboratory. They saw what all variables do we have, what all testings we have. They took out two variables that they thought were relevant. They started the research, they ended it. See, of course, if you are doing it for the sake of doing it, that can be a good idea. I mean, you might have different purposes of working on a research paper. But if you really want to work on a research paper with the idea of learning, it's always important for you to invest yourself, your energy, your time, and everything on every topic that you are working on, right from choosing to the topic. Right. A lot of times what happens with researchers is they spend a good 3 to 4 months in choosing a good research topic. So that is also one thing that happens. Now, coming back to the methodology part. Now, let's say you have got a list of different tests on AI and different tests on consumer behavior. Maybe you can just name it X and maybe another test as Y. Right. Now, the idea of this is to understand whether you would want to work on a small sample or a larger sample. Typically, universities and schools or maybe good journals will prefer to at least have a minimum of 100 sample size. Right. So for a primary research, what you will be doing is you'll be finding out tools for the variables that you have. One thing that's very important is these tools should be standardized. Now, what is standardized, and how do you find that whether this tool that I found is standardized or not? How do you find it is you check the reliability and the validity of all the tests that you're looking at. That this is very important. All right. Second, once you are done with checking the authenticity of your research papers, calculate tools and everything, you will look at the sample size. So, for example, let's say I decide I would want to work on 100 people, maybe 500 people, and if I'm a very enthusiast, I would, let's say, want to work on 1,000 people. Okay, this is the sample size. Now you're done with your tools, you're done with your sample size. Next is the method of analysis. Now, what kind of analysis you would want depends upon what kind of data do I want from it. So, for example, if I want to understand how AI and how consumer behavior is related, are they related or not, you can use tools for correlation. But if I really want to dig down deeper, how are they related, how strong is that relationship and things like that, you can go ahead with regression. Okay, these are two very basic methodologies that students should use.
Definitely, there is a lot more to learn from you, and the way you were explaining about how to write and how to go about with the research writing is wonderful, and we believe that there is a lot more to learn from you. So, dear friends, keep watching us. We would be giving you more insights into research writing as we have our expert Kriti with us, and Kriti is going to explain us more and more. Keep watching us. Thank you so much.